The views and opinions of this program are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. There is substantial risk of loss in trading futures and options, which you should carefully consider prior to trading. Well, as we get into the heart of harvest season, let's get one final agronomic update from our friends with AgriGold. This time it takes us to the state of Illinois. Joining us now, agronomist with AgriGold, Brett Lear, is on the show. Brett, it is good to talk with you. Thanks so much for the time and hope all is well.
Yeah, you too, Jesse. I appreciate you getting me on the show here.
Absolutely. So let's just start with how are things looking as we really start to get ready to ramp up harvest? I know there's been some activity, but this back half of September into October is go time, especially in your area in Illinois. How are things shaping up here as we get ready to really hit those fields hard over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, there's been some early activity as of late. Like you said, back half of September, we're really going to get ramped up and get going pretty fast. But last year in Illinois, it was kind of a record year for the most part, really good yields. This year, not quite as good. I mean, it's still really consistent, but you'll see some more variation, I think, out there just with the amount of disease we've had moving southern rust up from the south really early. And some places, tar spot came down, they kind of met in the middle. So I think we're going to see a little bit more variation from field to field than we did last year where everything was so consistently high. But I think that's kind of what we're seeing shake out as of right now with this early stuff, right? We've still got a lot more plant dates. We seem like we planted in April, May, and June this year. So there's going to be a lot of variation just with planting dates too in general.
Well, you mentioned southern rust, and I have to think that is going to be one of the many lessons learned from the 2025 growing season. I mean, thinking about things from that perspective, what are some of those key lessons that a lot of growers across Illinois are going to be kind of taking note of as they harvest and then think about next year's planting season?
There's a few things that really come to my mind as for what we think about southern rust. And the good thing about, the central part of Illinois, we get southern rust occasionally, but not to this extreme level we've seen this year. It came in early and it came in hard. You think about, our growing season, it seemed like all the way up until middle of May, we were cool. And we thought, man, this is the perfect recipe for tar spot, being cool and wet. But then it just turned a switch one day and it just became hot. And it came hot all summer long with a lot of humidity. So I think the biggest takeaway is, southern rust was extremely bad, but I don't know if we're going to see it like this every year. And the huge takeaway too is there's going to be hybrid tolerances between every hybrid on the farm. And they're not going to be created equal. And that's the same with tar spot. I've talked about that a lot with tar spot, but you can see variation between hybrids, and 2 fungicide passes right this year are going to be critical. It seems like different fungicides react to that disease a lot differently, versus 1 pass, 2 pass. This later corn is going to be more suspect for southern rust just because it has lived its whole life in the pool of southern rust around it. So I think fungicide timing and how many passes we sprayed with the tolerances of these hybrids are going to be the biggest takeaways this year, I think, in my opinion.
We've heard a lot about disease pressure, like you mentioned, southern rust, tar spot. What about weed pressure or pest pressure? Things like corn rootworm or other noxious weeds, things of that nature. Has there been many of those issues this year, Brett?
Yeah, this is a big concern for me this year for a insect pest, that is corn earworm. Corn earworm came in hard because we had so much later planted corn. And you could see a huge difference between trait packages on the farm, whether they were really good against that corn earworm or not. So there's a lot of cases where we just had so much water we could not get planted in a timely fashion. These growers had conventional corn, and we actually switched out those hybrids to something with a nice trait package to protect against that corn earworm. And we saw some pretty nice damage from those this year. Thankfully, where we're at in central Illinois, we don't see a lot of corn rootworm, which is a huge blessing for us because we don't have to use that below ground protection like those growers, north of basically I-74 in the state. So we do get lucky there, but we do see some significant corn earworm pressure as we get later. And this year it's just really elevated because of the lack of early planting we could get done with all the moisture.
Well, let's think about this. Obviously, again, farmers are going to be very busy with harvest the next several weeks, but they're also thinking about 2026, and they're going to be having conversations with their agronomists and their seed dealers and more, thinking about what's going to be in that hybrid lineup for next year. And I think you really kind of alluded to this, but let's talk about the importance of diversifying your hybrids across your acres. I think that's so crucial because we have all these different challenges out there, and one field is going to be different than maybe a field across the road, et cetera, et cetera. And that's why diversifying things is so important, right, Brett?
It is. It's huge. And we think about, from an agricultural perspective of our diversity in our lineup is really nice. I actually just got a text message here a few minutes ago from a plot that did not get sprayed with the fungicide. And you can see this huge separation between each product. And we were looking at plots saying, okay, this is going to be really good if we don't get Southern Rust. If we get Southern Rust, this hybrid is going to be really good. So seeing the differences between plots even coming in on what hybrid tolerances are better against Southern Rust, tar spot, you name the disease. I mean, it's out here this year. But seeing the diversity of these plots is going to be huge. And I think as we plant different genetic backgrounds on our farm, you can easily look on our website and our book. We've got a really nice platform called FieldGX, and you can see each genetic family. That's going to provide a lot of diversity on the farm to spread out those risks, because if we plant, for an example, all family Fs in our AgriGold lineup, our risk isn't really diversified a whole lot. And we can have, years like tar spot come in and we can get hammered very hard, just for an example. And we need to really think about that as margins get tighter with the input prices, crop prices. We have to really diversify our operation to be more stable at the end of the day. And I think stability is going to be key for next year too.
What are some standout hybrids you're excited about from AgriGold as we think about 2026, Brett?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind. It's really hard for me to pick because, I love them all dearly. But one that I think is going to have a really nice year, and it's been in the lineup since I would say 2019 was its first coming out party. It's AgriGold 645-16. Looks tremendous this year. And I think a lot of that is due to the Southern Rust tolerance. It does have a very high Southern Rust tolerance, but we walk plots and you can just go to that hybrid and see the massive kernel size difference. And a lot of places turned off dry and we couldn't fill those kernels. So I think that one's going to have an advantage this year just due to its nature and kernel flex. Kernels swelled up really, really nice. And you could see that in the plots. So I think if a hybrid does continue to build kernels during this late season stress, I think that's going to be huge, as well as, having nice kernels long, kernels around. So it's going to be kind of an equation this year to yield. And I think that one's going to have a nice equation to beat these conditions. So there's a few of them. There's a brand new one. It's A64218. This is brand new to us, but man, it looks stellar from Texas all the way north to where we shelled plots at so far. The consistency across these acres is kind of unmatched when it's running with 118-day competitors. Very dry versus those 118-day competitors, but the yields are right there with it. So I think that's going to be a huge asset for us moving forward.
Well, you mentioned folks can learn more about the different hybrids in the AgriGold lineup online, agrigold.com, talk with their local dealer, their local agronomist, et cetera, et cetera. Check out FieldGX and more. Anything final you would leave with producers here, Brett, as we, again, get busy with harvest and start thinking about 2026? Anything else you'd mention to folks today?
Yeah, I'd say just stay safe, stay positive. I think there's light at the end of the tunnel, especially in years like this where it is tougher and we see, input prices being a little bit more expensive than normal with the grain prices. I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel. So just keep a positive mind and try to let, the agronomics tell us a story for what this year happened. And like you said, reach out to anybody on the AgriGold team. We'd be more than willing to help, and have a safe, fun harvest too, because we only get to do this once a year. And it's always fun to get in the combine and see what yields shake out to be.
Yeah, great point there to wrap up on. Again, folks can learn more, agrigold.com. With that, AgriGold agronomist in Illinois, Brett Lear, thanks so much for joining us here on Market Talk. Appreciate the time, and we'll look forward to talking again in the future.
Yep, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.